sent an emergency transmission to Earth's representatives, warning them of the plot. 3 days later, as Ji-Ho and his pack rested in a mountain cave, strange ships entered Krell 9's atmosphere. They landed several kilometers from Ji-Ho's position and deployed 6 figures in advanced environmental suits, the consortium's elite hunters. "Find the human," ordered their commander. "Ensure he has an unfortunate accident." What they didn't realize was that Sun-Ho had detected their arrival long before their ships touched down. The pack was already moving, circling behind the hunters using paths only they knew existed. In the viewing chamber, Judge Yoon-hee watched in growing horror as the assassination team closed in on Ji-Ho's position. But she noticed something strange. The broadcast suddenly switched to a recorded loop showing Ji-Ho sleeping. "They've cut the live feed," she realized. "They don't want the galaxy to witness their crime." But Ji-Ho had anticipated this. During his months on Krell 9, he had captured several monitoring drones and reprogrammed them using skills from his diplomatic training. As the assassins moved in, these hidden drones activated, broadcasting directly to an emergency channel that reached every world in the consortium. The galaxy watched as the truth unfolded. A human who had mastered a death world was now being hunted not by its predators, but by those who claimed to uphold justice. The Grand Hall of Justice had never been so full. Representatives from every major species crowded the circular chamber, their bodies of various shapes and sizes, creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. Today was historic, the day a human would challenge the consortium's fundamental laws. 7 days had passed since Ji-Ho's hidden drones captured the assassination attempt. The footage spread across the galaxy in hours, showing how Ji-Ho and his pack of Krell hunters had outsmarted and defeated the elite kill team without taking a single life. Public opinion had shifted dramatically, with protests erupting on hundreds of worlds demanding Ji-Ho's return and trial. The consortium had no choice but to bring him back. Ji-Ho now stood in the center of the chamber, no longer in the prisoner's circle, but on the speaker's platform. His appearance shocked many who had not followed his exile closely. His body was lean and muscular from months of survival. Scars crossed his exposed skin, telling stories of battles won. He wore a combination of his tattered original clothes and materials from Krell 9, including a cloak made from crystal plant fibers that shimmered in the chamber's light. Most surprising to the gathered aliens was what stood beside him, Sun-Ho, the 6-legged hunter from Krell 9, now loyally at Ji-Ho's side. Special permission had been granted for the creature's presence, after Ji-Ho refused to leave the planet without his companion. Chief Justice Dae-sung was notably absent. After the assassination scandal, he had been removed from his position and placed under house arrest. In his place sat newly appointed Chief Justice Jin-soo, known for his fair rulings and interest in reforming outdated laws. "These proceedings will now begin," announced Jin-soo, his scales a calm blue. "Ji-Ho Park of Earth has invoked the right of survival challenge, an ancient but valid law of our consortium. He has survived 6 months on Krell 9, a world where no other being has lasted more than 12 days. The chamber fell silent as Jin-soo continued. "Before we hear the challenge, the court acknowledges the illegal attempt to silence this human. On behalf of the consortium, I formally apologize for this grave injustice." Ji-Ho nodded in acceptance, but remained focused on his goal. When invited to speak, he stepped forward. "I stand before you not just as a human, but as living proof that your understanding of life and adaptation is incomplete," Ji-Ho began, his voice strong despite his ordeal. "Your classification system ranks species based on technology, physiology, and historical development. It labeled Earth a death world, and humans as primitive because we evolved in what you consider harsh conditions." Ji-Ho activated a holographic display showing images from Earth, hurricanes, volcanoes, deserts, and ice fields. "These are the environments of my homeworld. To you, they seem hostile and deadly. To us, they are the forces that shaped our species." Ji-Ho switched the display to show Krell 9's similar but more extreme conditions. "Your death world is simply a more intense version of what we already know." Sun-Ho made a series of clicking sounds, drawing nervous looks from the audience. Ji-Ho placed a hand on the creature's head. "What you see as a mindless predator I recognize as an intelligent being with complex social structures. Your scientists dismissed Krell 9's hunters as simple killers because they couldn't understand their communication. I learned it in months because humans evolved to adapt, to observe, and to connect with our environment. The scientific experts in the chamber leaned forward, captivated by Jiho's insights. I propose a new classification: crucible worlds, planets that produce uniquely resilient and adaptable species through evolutionary pressure. Earth is not a death world. It is a crucible that forged humanity's greatest strength, our ability to survive and thrive anywhere. For 3 days, the hearing continued. Jiho presented evidence from his time on Krell 9. Scientists confirmed his discoveries about the planet's cycles. Experts in xenobiology marveled at his bond with Sun Ho. Legal scholars debated the implications for consortium law. On the final day, Chief Justice Jin Soo delivered the verdict. After careful consideration of all evidence, this court acknowledges its error. His scales shifted to a golden hue, the color of momentous decisions. Earth is hereby reclassified as the first recognized crucible world in our records. Humans are granted full status as an adaptive species, with all rights and privileges thereof. The chamber erupted in voices and movement as delegates reacted to the historic ruling. Furthermore, Jin Soo continued when quiet returned, Jiho Park's sentence is officially vacated. His discoveries on Krell 9 will be studied for generations, and his treatment will serve as a reminder of the dangers of prejudice. As Jiho and Sun Ho prepared to leave the chamber, they were approached by representatives from 12 worlds seeking diplomatic relations with Earth. The human who had been exiled as a criminal was returning as a hero and ambassador. "What will you do now?" asked Judge Yoon-hee, who had supported him throughout the ordeal. Jiho looked at Sun Ho, then at the stars visible through the chamber's great window. "First I'll go home to Earth," he said. "Then perhaps I'll help establish the first human-Krell cultural exchange. There are so many worlds out there that we've been told are too dangerous to explore." A smile crossed his scarred face. "But now the galaxy knows. There's no such thing as a world too deadly for humans." 3 months later, Earth joined the consortium's High Council. The first diplomatic mission to Krell 9 was already underway, with Jiho leading a team of human scientists. Across the galaxy, species that had once looked down on the primitives from Earth now sought human expertise for exploring worlds previously deemed uninhabitable. The term human had taken on a new meaning in galactic language. It now translated roughly to one who thrives where others cannot. The predator collapsed on solid ground, its breathing labored. One of its 6 legs was badly injured, likely from fighting the quicksand. It watched Jiho with large compound eyes that reflected the purple sky. Jiho backed away, giving the creature space. He expected it to leave once it recovered its strength. Instead, the hunter remained, observing him with what seemed like curiosity. "I'll call you Sun Ho," Jiho decided. "It means gentle one in my language." In the following days, the injured predator stayed near Jiho's camp. At first, Jiho remained cautious, but gradually realized the creature was not going to attack. He began leaving small portions of his food for Sun Ho, and in return, the hunter drove away smaller predators that approached the camp. The human has formed a symbiotic relationship with one of Krell 9's most dangerous species, reported Science Officer Min-ji to the increasingly large audience. This has never been documented before. As Sun Ho's injury healed, Jiho studied the predator's behavior. He noticed how Sun Ho tested terrain before crossing it, how it sensed coming weather changes, and how it communicated with others of its kind through complex movements. By the 3rd month, Jiho had learned to mimic some of Sun Ho's warning signals. When a pack of hunters approached their shared territory, Jiho used these signals to communicate that this was claimed ground. Remarkably, the pack respected the boundary. "He's speaking their language," gasped Professor Yoonji during a popular science broadcast. "The human has decoded an alien species communication system without any translation technology." Sun Ho grew stronger, but didn't leave. Instead, the hunter began bringing Jiho small prey animals, not as gifts, Jiho realized, but as teaching. Sunho was showing him which creatures were safe to eat. One night, as they shared the warmth of a fire made from slow-burning crystal plants, Jiho noticed Sunho becoming alert. The predator made a low warning sound Jiho had never heard before. Minutes later, the ground began to shake violently, much worse than any previous shift. A massive crack opened near their camp, spewing toxic gas. Jiho grabbed his essential supplies, but the shifting terrain separated him from his escape route. Sunho leaped across the widening gap and made urgent noises. Jiho understood. The hunter was showing him a different path. Trusting his companion, Jiho followed Sunho away from the disaster. They traveled through the night, moving higher into the rocky highlands. By morning, they reached a series of caves unknown to Jiho. Inside, he discovered a whole pack of the six-legged hunters. Sunho made complex gestures, and to Jiho's amazement, the pack accepted his presence. "Incredible," whispered Judge Yoonhee as the court watched. "The human hasn't just survived Krell 9, he's becoming part of it." Chief Justice Dae-sung's scales had turned almost black with rage. "This changes nothing. He is still an exile serving his sentence." But across the galaxy, billions watched as Jiho Park, the human who was supposed to die, instead revealed new understanding of a world everyone had written off as uninhabitable. Species that had dismissed Earth as primitive now sent official requests to open diplomatic channels. As Jiho settled into the hunter's den, surrounded by creatures that any other being in the galaxy feared, he realized he had found something unexpected on this death world: belonging. 6 months had passed since Jiho's exile began. No one in the history of the Galactic Court had survived even half that time on Krell 9. What had started as entertainment for aliens expecting a quick death had become the most watched event in galactic history. Jiho sat cross-legged at the entrance of the cave he now shared with Sunho and the pack of six-legged hunters. His appearance had changed dramatically. His hair grew long and was tied back with fibers from crystal plants. His clothes, mostly destroyed by the harsh environment, had been replaced with coverings made from predator hides. Scars marked his arms and face, each telling a story of survival. "Time to make our move," Jiho said to Sunho, who lay beside him, alert as always. Jiho had discovered something the Consortium never realized about Krell 9. The planet's seemingly random surface changes followed patterns connected to its 3 moons. Today, all 3 moons would align, a rare event that would cause major terrain shifts, but also create a temporary pathway to the highest peak on the planet. From that peak, the Galactic Court's monitoring station would be within reach. Jiho gathered his supplies, tools he had crafted, food preserved using techniques he developed, and a journal containing everything he had learned about Krell 9. Sunho made a series of clicking sounds that alerted the rest of the pack to their departure. 3 adult hunters chose to follow them. Jiho had named them Jun, Hyun, and Suk after learning to distinguish their unique markings. The pack had accepted him as one of their own after he had helped them defend their territory from a rival group. The journey to the peak was treacherous. Toxic storms lashed the mountainside as the 3 moons aligned overhead. The ground buckled and shifted beneath their feet. Twice, newly formed chasms nearly swallowed them whole. In the Galactic Court viewing chamber, the audience had grown to unprecedented numbers. Species from across the galaxy tuned in to watch Jiho's mysterious journey. "Where is the human going?" asked Science Officer Minji. "This path leads away from all known water sources." Judge Yoonhee studied the topographical displays. "He's heading to the central peak." "But why?" Chief Justice Dae-sung entered the chamber, his scales a deep purple of concern. "Double the monitoring drones. I want to know exactly what this human is planning." After a grueling climb that lasted hours, Jiho and his pack companions reached the summit. Below them stretched the bizarre landscape of Krell 9, moving forests, lakes that appeared and disappeared, and the hunting grounds of creatures even more dangerous than Sunho's kind. Jiho walked to the highest point, where a small monitoring drone hovered, recording his every move. He stared directly into its lens, knowing the entire Consortium watched. "I, Jiho Park of Earth, have survived 6 months on your death world," he announced clearly. "I formally challenge Earth's classification under Consortium law. I demand a review of humanity's status and my immediate retrieval." In the viewing chamber, chaos erupted. "He cannot do this," sputtered a consortium official. "Exiles have no rights to challenge classifications." Judge Yoon-hee consulted her datapad. "Actually, there is precedent. The Tulare case of Cycle 3882 established that any being who survives extreme conditions can petition for species reassessment." Chief Justice Dae-sung's scales flashed dangerously. "This human has not survived. His sentence is not complete. But he has already lived longer on Krell 9 than any species in recorded history," argued Judge Yoon-hee. "That alone merits consideration." "Oni, the peak." Ji-ho continued his speech, unaware of the debate his words had sparked. "Humans evolved on a world that, by your standards, would qualify as hostile. Our strength is not in our bodies, but in our adaptability and intelligence." Ji-ho gestured to the hunters beside him. "I've formed bonds with species you consider mindless killers. I've decoded patterns in this planet's behavior that your scientists missed. Everything I've accomplished proves your classification system is flawed." The speech spread across the galaxy, translated into thousands of languages. On countless worlds, beings who had dismissed humans as primitive watched in growing admiration. In a private chamber off the main viewing room, Chief Justice Dae-sung made a fateful decision. "The human cannot be allowed to return," he told a small group of elite security officers. "Send the special operations team, make it look like a natural death." Judge Yoon-hee, passing by the room, overheard the order. She rushed to her quarters and Galactic Court's viewing numbers had tripled since yesterday. Millions across the galaxy were watching his exile, expecting his death at any moment. "Let's disappoint them again today," he whispered to himself. The morning brought acid rain that hissed against the crystal plants. Ji-ho used this time to plan. He had already mapped the area within 2 kilometers of his landing site. Today he would search for water. As the rain stopped, Ji-ho emerged with his makeshift spear, the knife they'd given him attached to a hardened branch from one of Krell 9's tougher plants. His clothes were torn in places, and his face had a new scar from a close encounter with a flying creature on his second day. The terrain shifted constantly on Krell 9. What had been a valley yesterday was now a series of jagged hills. The planet's surface moved like a living thing, responding to underground pressures. Ji-ho climbed to higher ground and spotted a shimmer in the distance, possibly water. He marked the direction and began moving carefully, always watching for the planet's many dangers. In the Galactic Court viewing chamber, alien spectators watched with growing interest. "The human has survived 3 full rotations," noted Science Officer Minji. "That's already longer than any previous exile." Chief Justice Dae-sung's scales darkened with annoyance. "It is merely luck. The real tests of Krell 9 come with time." The planet, Ji-ho reached what appeared to be a small pond with purple liquid. His scanner indicated it contained water, but also high levels of minerals that could be toxic. He remembered Earth's hot springs and how ancient humans had used volcanic water. Ji-ho collected some of the liquid in his purifier. It worked slowly, but by midday he had filled his container with drinkable water. The aliens watching were impressed by his patience and knowledge. As Ji-ho prepared to return to his shelter, the ground began to shake violently. A massive crack opened between him and his path home. From inside the crack emerged a beast unlike any he'd seen before, a long, multi-legged creature with razor-sharp limbs and sensing organs that turned directly toward him. The viewing numbers in the Galactic Court jumped as everyone expected to finally see the human's death. Ji-ho didn't run. On a planet like Krell 9, showing fear or turning your back often triggered predator instincts. Instead, he stood his ground and observed the creature's movements. The beast advanced slowly, testing his reaction. Ji-ho noted how it carefully placed its front limbs on certain types of ground, but avoided the purple moss that grew in patches. Taking a calculated risk, Ji-ho backed toward a large patch of the purple moss. The creature followed, but stopped. At the edge of the moss, its sensing organs pulsed with what seemed like frustration. The moss must be painful or poisonous to it, Ji-ho realized. He quickly gathered some moss on the end of his spear, and when the creature lunged forward, Ji-ho thrust the moss-covered point toward its sensing organs. The beast recoiled with a high-pitched shriek and retreated back into the crack. In the viewing chamber, the aliens watched in stunned silence. "He's learning the ecosystem," whispered Judge Yoon-hee. "He's not just surviving by luck." That night, Ji-ho improved his shelter by surrounding it with the protective moss. He used his tablet to record everything he had learned about Krell 9's plants, animals, and terrain. A week passed, then two. Ji-ho not only survived, but began to understand the planet's patterns. He discovered that the ground movements followed a cycle tied to Krell 9's 3 moons. The predators had territories and preferred hunting times. The toxic plants often held water or nutrients that could be safely extracted. The Galactic Court's broadcast became the most watched program in 50 cycles. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive now studied Ji-ho's techniques with growing respect. After 30 days, when no other sentenced exile had lasted more than 6, Ji-ho had built a more permanent shelter in a cliff face, created tools from local materials, and even tamed smaller creatures that warned him of approaching dangers. "This changes our understanding of adaptability," Professor Yoon-ji told viewers across the galaxy. "The human isn't just surviving through strength or technology, but through observation and intelligence." Chief Justice Dae-sung watched with growing alarm as public opinion shifted. Messages poured in questioning the justice of Ji-ho's sentence and demanding a review of Earth's classification as a primitive world. "Increase the difficulty," Dae-sung ordered the monitoring team. "Redirect the human to Zone 12. No one could survive there." As Ji-ho slept that night, unaware of the new challenges being prepared for him, the monitoring drones moved into position. Tomorrow would bring new dangers engineered not by Krell 9, but by those who feared what his survival might mean for the Galactic Order. 60 days into his exile on Krell 9, Ji-ho stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking a vast valley that hadn't existed the week before. The planet's constant reshaping had created new territories for him to explore, but also new dangers. The Galactic Court had stopped announcing how long he had survived. His continued existence had become an embarrassment to those who sentenced him. Ji-ho checked his handmade calendar carved into his shelter wall. 2 full cycles of Krell 9's 3 moons had passed. He had survived twice as long as any previous exile in the planet's history. "Time to map the new area," he said to himself, tucking his journal into a pouch made from the hide of a predator that had tried to eat him during his 3rd week. As Ji-ho carefully descended the cliff, using handholds he had carved earlier, movement caught his eye. Something large was thrashing in a pit of quicksand-like substance that appeared after yesterday's ground shift. Ji-ho approached cautiously. Trapped in the pit was a young predator, one of the 6-legged hunters that ruled Krell 9's food chain. The creature's front limbs clawed desperately at solid ground, while its body sank deeper into the pit. Most exiles would have celebrated the death of such a dangerous predator. Ji-ho, however, saw something familiar in the animal's struggle. "You're just trying to survive like me," he murmured. Using skills he had developed over the past months, Ji-ho created a rescue plan. He gathered vines from nearby crystal trees, tested their strength, and fashioned a crude harness. With careful movements, he extended the harness toward the trapped hunter. In the Galactic Court viewing chamber, aliens watched in disbelief. The human is trying to save an apex predator, said observer Taewon. "This makes no logical sense." Judge Yoon-hee leaned forward, fascinated. "Perhaps there is logic we do not yet understand." On Krell 9, the young hunter initially snapped at the harness, but its struggles weakened as it continued to sink. Finally, it allowed Ji-ho to secure the vines around its torso. With enormous effort, Ji-ho pulled the creature from the pit. Ji-ho Park walked through the gleaming halls of the Galactic Court, his human body looking small among the towering alien species that filled the chamber. Today, he faced judgment for what the consortium called dangerous interference during Earth's first contact with the Nari people. The court fell silent as 5 judges entered. They floated on gravity platforms, their bodies covered in shimmering scales that changed color with their moods. Chief Justice Dae-sung, known for his hatred of newer galactic members, led the panel. "Bring forth the human," he commanded, his voice translator making the words echo through the vast chamber. Guards moved Ji-ho to the center of the room. A force field surrounded him, though he posed no threat to anyone. It was standard procedure for dangerous species, a classification that hurt Earth's standing in galactic politics. "Jiho Park of Earth," began Daesung, his scales turning a deep red. "You stand accused of revealing forbidden technology to the Nari people during diplomatic talks. How do you answer?" Jiho stood tall. "I shared medical techniques that saved lives after their moon disaster. Our treaty permits humanitarian aid." Murmurs filled the chamber. Many spectators had never heard a human speak before. Some seemed surprised by his calm logic. "Silence!" Daesung's voice boomed. "The treaty permits basic aid. You taught them advanced cellular regeneration." "With respect," Jiho replied, "the technique is basic by human standards. We've used it for centuries." This caused more commotion. Several alien diplomats checked their datapads, clearly surprised by this information. Judge Yun-hee, the only member who had visited Earth, spoke up. "The human speaks truth. Their species evolved on a world we would classify as hostile. Their medical knowledge developed differently from ours." Daesung's scales darkened further. "It does not matter. Rules exist for a reason. Primitive species must advance slowly or risk destroying themselves." Jiho felt his face grow hot. "Humans have existed for thousands of years without destroying ourselves." "Yet you nearly did, many times," another judge countered. The debate continued for hours. Jiho presented evidence of Earth's peaceful intentions and the good that came from helping the Nari. Judge Yun-hee supported him several times, but the other judges seemed unmoved. As the court took a break, Jiho's alien, lawyer Quan, approached him. Quan's forearms moved nervously as he spoke. "This is not going well," Quan whispered. "Chief Justice Daesung has wanted to make an example of humans since you joined the consortium. He believes your kind advances too quickly." Jiho nodded. "What are my options?" "Few," Quan admitted, "but keep answering truthfully. Some in the audience support you." When the court resumed, the mood had changed. Daesung spoke with the other judges in private tones before addressing the room. "This court has reached a decision," he announced. "Jiho Park is guilty of violating consortium protocol." Jiho's heart sank. The penalty could be severe. "The normal punishment would be 5 years imprisonment," Daesung continued. "However, given the serious nature of this offense and the need to show that humans must respect galactic law, we have chosen a different sentence." The room grew tense. Even some of the guards looked uncomfortable. "Jiho Park will be exiled to Krell 9 for 1 full cycle." Gasps filled the chamber. Even Quan dropped his datapad in shock. "This is a death sentence," Quan protested. "No sentient being has survived more than a few rotations on Krell 9. Then the human should have considered that before breaking our laws." Daesung responded coldly. Jiho stood stunned. Everyone knew about Krell 9. The planet had toxic air, extreme temperatures, deadly predators, and unstable ground. It was classified as the most dangerous habitable world in charted space. "I request an appeal," Jiho said firmly. "Denied," Daesung replied. "The sentence will be carried out immediately." Judge Yun-hee stood up. "I formally register my protest. This punishment far exceeds the crime." "Your protest is noted," Daesung said dismissively. "Guards, prepare the human for transport." As they led Jiho away, he noticed small recording drones following him. He realized with horror that his exile would be broadcast across the galaxy as entertainment. Within hours, Jiho found himself in a small dropship heading toward Krell 9's stormy surface. Through the viewport, he could see lightning tearing through purple clouds and vast moving landscapes that seemed alive. "Landing in 2 minutes," the automated system announced. "Survival package will be provided upon exit. May fortune favor." Jiho took deep breaths, remembering his survival training. Earth itself had plenty of deadly environments. Humans had evolved to overcome challenges. Maybe, just maybe, he could survive long enough to find a way off this nightmare world. As the ship landed with a hard thud, Jiho checked the minimal survival gear they'd given him. A knife, water purifier, emergency shelter, and basic medical kit. Not much against an entire hostile planet. The door hissed open, revealing a landscape straight from humanity's worst nightmares. The air shimmered with heat and poison. In the distance, something large moved between rock formations. Behind him, the ship's systems announced, "Exile commenced, Galactic Court monitoring active." Ji-Ho stepped onto the purple soil of Krell 9, already planning his first move. The consortium expected him to die. He intended to disappoint them. Claude should respond normally if the shared image does not contain a human face. For creative or fictional writing, Claude should use its knowledge to respond directly, without searching unless essential to address the request. Claude should avoid searching for creative writing requests it already knows how to fulfill. When appropriate for creative writing tasks, Claude should provide a focused, coherent response that balances quality with efficiency without using too many tool calls or verbosely justifying its decisions. Ji-Ho woke to the sound of something large moving outside his makeshift shelter. 3 days had passed since his arrival on Krell 9, and each moment had been a battle for survival. He stayed perfectly still, controlling his breathing as the creature sniffed around the entrance. The shelter, built from interlocking crystalline plants he'd discovered, had so far kept him hidden from the planet's larger predators. When the sounds faded, Ji-Ho carefully checked his survival tablet. The device showed him that the